Thank you, Chairman Lee, for the opportunity to again tell you a little bit about what's going on with the Cotton Research and Promotion Program, and certainly congratulations to you and to the National Cotton Council staff for a great job this year. I'm going to start with some good news, and Jody talked about this a little bit, that we know that world demand for cotton is increasing. And it's some pretty solid evidence. We've been hearing things anecdotally for several years that we think things were about to turn around. In 2017-18 crop year, we're going to probably reach or exceed 120 million bales, which is good news. And of course, global demand is influenced by world economic growth, and that's been a help for us here in the last year. But there's some other positive news as well. One is that the loss in market share, we don't have the granular data worldwide that we do in the U.S., and these are actual proprietary data that we look at. In the key markets for cotton, we saw a big decline in market share after 2010. In the last year, that has flattened out. We still lost maybe a little bit. We've seen some areas, like in the activewear market, we picked up a little bit of market share. But basically, that sharp decline has moderating, and that's we have to do that before we can increase demand. We're also seeing a moderation of the large decline in the average weight per unit or average weight per garment. That has hurt us about to the neighborhood of about 10 to 20% of lost demand is because fabrics have been getting lighter. In the last year, that again has at least moderated. So a combination of better economy, if we could gain share, at least hold share, and if the fabric weights begin to stabilize a little bit, then that allows for increased demand as we go forward. So some pretty good news there. There are some permanent shifts in the market, and I put permanent in quotes because I don't think anything is ever permanent, but these are things that we have to deal with and recognize as we develop a strategy to increase demand for cotton. Number one is competitive fibers are better than they used to be. We know that. Brands and retailers or consumers are all more accepting of other fibers than they used to be. Lighter weight fabrics are still required in many product categories. And so many categories today require performance features that I'll talk about a little bit. Not just the activewear market, but just traditional markets require some kind of performance feature. And also the rising importance of sustainability. So in response, what we're looking to do is try to, number one, figure out ways to improve and market cotton products to better compete with the synthetic fibers out there. We've got to continue to ramp up our sustainability efforts. We want to look for opportunities to exploit weaknesses in the synthetic fiber market. We want to create more effective marketing communications for us, and that's particularly true when we were looking, this past year was the lowest budget year we'd had in quite some time. We were $13 million down from our peak just several years ago, so we have to become more efficient in our communications. And last but not least, through our agricultural research team, enhance the U.S. cotton production and profitability. So we'll start with how do we make better products that can help us compete with synthetic fibers. There's basically three ways to do it. Number one, you can engineer whatever you're trying to achieve into the fabric. There's some examples of that I'll show you. You can integrate chemistry into the developments of fabrics to give it the desired properties, such as wrinkle-resistant technology, moisture management, water repellency, abrasion resistance, antimicrobials, etc. And in some cases, and increasingly so, we have to look at other fibers, blends, to achieve the kind of properties that we need for cotton. That's just the way the market has changed. An example of engineering something into fabrics, I think I've shown this before, but this is still something that's been requested of us. On the left is construction that kind of mimics a mushroom, and it has natural thermal properties, so you don't have to have a finish on that. On the right is the opposite, where you have these little vents that are engineered into the fabric for cooling. The good news, again, is you don't have to add chemistry. Oftentimes we use natural dyes to dye this, and this has been something that's been very popular among the interest from the brands and retailers. There's a segment of the population that just wants everything natural, and this is a combination of a natural fiber, no dyes, natural dyes, and no chemical finishes on the product. That's kind of a limited market, and if we look at the reality is we do have to have chemistry applications, sometimes a combination of engineering something and a chemistry, and we're always having to revise the the applications to make it better, less costly, or in some cases make it more sustainable. This is an example of something we've been working on in the active market. Sweat hiding technology, that's a problem for cotton. We don't want to look like this guy that's playing golf here that's got the sweat stains. So there's different ways through engineering fabrics and using finishes to minimize that for cotton. Durable press is an important market for cotton, and we've had to find an alternative to formaldehyde chemistry. That's being phased out, or the pressures are there to phase it out. And we have a patent, actually, which achieved this past year, and we have a solution. We're just now in the stages of working with mills around the world to have non-formaldehyde options for durable press products for cotton. Fluorine is another problem. It's used quite a bit in moisture management technologies. We have found and have an optimization of non-fluorine moisture management technologies. It actually turned out, in this case, we made a better product. We actually lowered the cost, lowered the concentration of chemistry, lowered the temperatures, the softer hand, and a better overall performance. So what do? We take the flagship technologies. Our main ones are tough cotton for abrasion resistance, wicking windows, trans-dry for moisture management, and storm for water repellency. We engineer a lot of these, work them into the fabrics, show them, actually in some cases make garments, take them out to brands and retailers all around the world to show what can be done in cotton. Unfortunately, sometimes we do. As I said, we have to use other fibers. We'd love to only work with 100% cotton, but we have to sometimes use spandex for stretch, polyester or nylon for strength, sometimes rayon viscose for sheen or drape, and sometimes we even, a combination of wool allows us to keep an all-natural product. We've seen a pretty radical shift in the market, and we've had a radical shift in our developments in terms of the percentage that we develop that are a blended product versus a traditional unfinished 100% cotton. Today, I think over half of the developments that we show probably contain other fibers, and that was probably 90% back in 10 years ago was 100% cotton. The reality today is that when you look at the demand for cotton, at least using in the U.S. retail market, about 60% of the demand for cotton today comes as part of a blended product. 10 years ago or 5 years ago, it was only 40%. So the 100% cotton market is a smaller market, and we are getting more of our demand from blends, and we have to figure out a way. In some cases, particularly with lighter weight fabrics, we have to sometimes use other fibers. Now, developing the products is, that's hard enough, but the real difficult challenge is implementation. And we have targeted our limited resources primarily in the performance apparel market. That's the fastest growing market in all the apparel side. It's growing not only in the U.S. but worldwide. It's also a very visible market, so it spills over into other areas as well. This market that I mentioned, it does require lighter weight fabrics, fast drying, moisture management, stretch, water repellency. So naturally, all these things tend to work against cotton. So there's a big challenge to overcome that. You know, in the 70s, if you look at what was the definition of performance, if you take a look at this guy on the left, if anybody in their upper 50s or older, that could be you, back in 1975, that was a performance product. It's the old wash and wear, the kind of leisure type suit. Pretty bad looking stuff. It picked, it peeled, had a lot of problems with it. On the right is the modern day golfer. This is Adam Scott, who was actually recently named as the most fashionable golfer. That's an all synthetic outfit he's got. That's all polyester. So the product is better, it's tougher, and we've got to find ways of penetrating some of these markets. So we take our four main technologies. There's others. We develop performance brochures that explain what cotton can do. Take these to brands, retailers, mills all around the world. And then we use events, web promotions, and oftentimes events. And many of those times we work with CCI. We often have joint promotion booths around the world. One key example in the activewear market is something called the Outdoor Retailer Show. That's held in Salt Lake City every year. We've been part of that now for, I guess, about 5 years. And our staff tells me that every year we're getting more and more inquiries about the possibility of using cotton in some of these markets. And now that we have the fabrics to back it up, we're beginning to see some traction in that, and we're very excited about that. So we're making headway. Structure is another event. It's another outdoor type retailer outdoor event held in Portland. And one of the things that's changed in our company is it's difficult to reach so many people one-on-one, and we use these trade shows as one example of ways to communicate. But another way that's becoming very effective for us is these technical workshops. We hold over 50 technical workshops throughout the year. Many of those are in our Cary, North Carolina office. Some are international, some are around the U.S. And those technical workshops primarily are targeted to brands and retailers. We're talking everything from denim manufacturing, dyeing and finishing, sweater manufacturing. And one of the most popular ones is this something we've called the Active, which is a workshop that is very selective. We bring just the major brands who are in the activewear market. We hold these, I think, twice per year. And the idea is to have these key decision makers understand what can be done with cotton. And oftentimes they come in and they were not aware that the kind of products that we're showing them could be made with cotton, in many cases, as I've said, with blended products. I was told recently, they said that when these workshops go online and are shown to be open, that they fill up in 5 minutes, that there's such a demand for these things. So we just physically can't do more than 50-some a year, but it does show that the brands and retailers see this as a very important tool for their education on what can be done in cotton. At the end of last year, we actually had 181 suppliers of the technologies around the world. And it wasn't that long ago that we only had a handful. So we can supply the fabrics and products. I say we, the industry can supply it if the retailer brand wants to adopt that. So it's always been a chicken and the egg. The brand retailer asks us, who's going to supply it? And we try to take it to the suppliers. They say, who's going to buy it? So we actually have both now. We have a good supply base, and we have seeing increases in demand. Last year, we worked with 16 of the top 20 major activewear brands. We had a number of technology adoptions. Oftentimes, we have collaborations with other interested parties. It could be other fibers. It could be a sweater manufacturer. And we've had some pretty big impacts. A lot of times we talk about gaining market share, but one of the most important factors that happened for us last year was we got calls from a major retailer that said that they were thinking of moving away from cotton because they had abrasion in the 100% cotton pants in the children's wear market. So they were going to either go with a synthetic or a high synthetic cotton blend. So we were able to take the technologies, work with them. It turned out it was a very successful adoption for Target and Kohl's as well. And now you're hearing from another major brand retailer that says, we see what's happening there. We want this technology as well. So that's an example of preserving market share as opposed to necessarily gaining market share. Shifting to sustainability, I know Gary will, at some point, has already talked about the goals, so I won't go into any detail there. We did play, Cotton Incorporated, a key role in the front end of this, where we are working with our scientists, working with National Cotton Council and industry experts to help determine the boundaries of what's attainable, but also what's meaningful in the supply chain. And personally, I think these goals are a great addition to the U.S. cotton sustainability story. We continued a very successful program of farm tours in 2017. 32 companies were represented, and they saw firsthand what's being done on U.S. farms. This is often the first step to converting them to in our Cotton Leads partnership. Thanks to folks like Larry McClendon and Ramey Stiles, Trent Felton, Nathan Reed, among others, and Daryl Ernest from AMS for making this happen. It really is, it's the best thing we've got as far as the first impression when they actually see how farmers take care of the land, what they're doing in sustainability. It makes our job from that point on much easier. We do keep our partners informed throughout the year. We do events. We've had private meetings. We have an annual report, advertising, trade shows, all to continue to have that dialogue on U.S. cotton and sustainability. Last year, we hired a Chief Sustainability Officer, Dr. Jesse Daystar. He is an expert in sustainability metrics. And this will help us boost our efforts in the coming years even more. He and I are on the council task force as advisors, and we really appreciate that opportunity to be connected with this important task force. We're using our PR to get this information out. We got a lot of mileage on hiring Jesse, and he's being interviewed all around the world in terms of what's going on with cotton, and he has the credibility. He's been in this business as a sustainability expert for several years and is a leading authority in the life cycle analysis. So our Cotton Leads program, I updated this slide the other day. It's 508. I think it's now up to 511 partners as of last week. Actually 512. We signed Abercrombie and Fitch just yesterday. And what a partner means is that they recognize that the U.S. cotton is on a path to sustainability, and they are not excluding U.S. cotton in their supply chain. So this is very important. No matter what kind of efforts go on as far as additional programs, we want people to have a positive impression of U.S. cotton and sustainability. Dr. Daystar is very active in something called the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, and this is a challenge for cotton. They have developed some, not what Jesse's developed, but this group developed something called the Higg Index, which is a measure of sustainability of various fibers. And because of the way they treat water, cotton does not score very well in this category. So Jesse's on that group now and has some influence, and we're going to be working to see if we can change that, because we think they're using science that's not sound, and they're also not factoring in the fact that we have problems with microplastics in the synthetic fibers, and they're not factoring that in. We're active with Field to Market and the Field Print Calculator. You'll hear more about that in the coming year. We held a mini sustainability conference in New York. It had a pretty catchy title, Everything You've Heard About Cotton is Wrong. This was a good little event. It actually ruffled a few of the naysayers' feathers on cotton. Got a couple of criticism from them, saying that, we portrayed the sort of the enemy not as fairly as they thought we should, but they needed their feathers ruffled a little bit, so we weren't too upset about that. But it went well. We got good press from Sourcing Journal, and I think you're going to see we'll be doing more of this in a way. What's a big news in this past year? Continued emphasis in the sustainability world on the microplastics. Little fibers that are released from polyester makes its way into the water streams and ultimately into the oceans. This is a huge problem. There's no solution right now. So how do we stand? I mean, if we're going to talk about the fact that polyester has problems, how does cotton do? Well, we have a study that we've been working with North Carolina State University. It shows how the various fibers biodegrade in water. And that dark purple line is cotton. It shows after 180 days, cotton is about 70% already degraded. Rayon's a little below cotton. Polyester is at the bottom, and it shows no upward trend. So that stuff is just going to stay there in water. It's not going away. And actually, the concerning thing is that fish are actually attracted to it. So they are actually eating this stuff, and it's actually showing up in fish today. So again, it's a big problem, but it also is an opportunity for cotton, because we're obviously going to talk about this, and cotton has, I think as the study is completed, it'll show that cotton completely degrades and polyester does not. Turning to the consumer quickly, the three things we think about is we got to create awareness, we got to create engagement with the consumer, and ultimately we hope that there's some kind of action positive for cotton. And rather than go through all the programs, I'm going to show you a very quick 2-minute video that kind of covers just some of the highlights in the consumer marketing area. So one of the themes in that little video is that we are using social media more and more to reach our customer. Television becomes more expensive. So to be more efficient, we still need television, but at the same time, we can support that with social media, and the staff does a great job. So last, I want to just say that the Agricultural and Fiber Quality Research team do a great job in trying to support a sustainable future and trying to improve profitability. They're involved, obviously, in things like pest management, weed control, disease management, fiber quality research, harvesting research, among other things, and cottonseed research and marketing. And we're on the path to deregulation for ultra-low gossypol. That's still going to take some time, but I think we're on the way there. But I'll end with very positive news recently. We've been working with the National Cottonseed Products Association, and we have funded a study in the last year or so on a health study and looking at cottonseed oil. And we got just a report back a few months ago showing that study by the University of Georgia, nutritional research, showed positive numbers in terms of lowering bad cholesterol, raising good cholesterol, and actually lowering appetite. And we're going to be funding additional research in this upcoming year to increase the validity. So we'll be taking that out and beginning to do a little more promotion on the crush side in the oil. And so I guess we can say that everything you thought you knew about cottonseed oil is wrong as well. So maybe we'll have a seminar on that. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for the opportunity, and congratulations again to the National Cotton Council for a very successful year. Thank you.